it's Melody Snowflake, and I am back here with another character analysis video. I haven't made one of these in a couple months, so I'm really excited to get back into this. So before we begin, you might have noticed from the title that this is a character analysis on a My Hero Academia character named Dabi. And I won't sugarcoat this. This video will contain a lot, and I mean a lot of spoilers, especially for season 6 and 7 of My Hero Academia, including major twists, plot points, and events. So if you have not caught up with the series, especially season 6 and 7, I would recommend not watching this video until you do, because you will get extremely, and I mean extremely, spoiled. So I'll give you about 3 seconds to click away if you want to. 3, 2, 1. Alright, are we still here? We're still here. Okay, thank you so much for those of you who are staying. I am really excited to talk about Dabi with you all. I feel like he's a really misunderstood character, and I'm honestly genuinely surprised. From most fandom spaces I've been in, the tragic villain backstory seems to tug at most people's heartstrings. So to see someone like Dabi get so misunderstood and mischaracterized and everything, it is honestly surprising to me. I'm not invalidating anybody's opinions, by the way, but it is genuinely surprising to me how many people look at his tragic backstory and go, well, that's just in his head. So let's go through what happened to him, what made him the villain he is, what caused him to do what he's doing, and let's talk a little bit about his psyche as well, because there's a lot to unpack here. Quick disclaimer, I'm not trying to attack any other characters here, and not at all. It will sound like it because some of the people in his life are other characters, and these other characters have caused some of the events, whether directly or indirectly, that led to Dabi being a villain. And I'm also not trying to condone any of his actions. I'm not saying being a villain and burning people alive is a good thing. I'm not trying to say that, no. What I am trying to do is really unpack his psyche, understand what made him the way he is, what he experienced, what he went through, his thought process, and what really caused him to become the villain he's become. And that's the whole point of this video. We're going to explore all of that. So let's start at the beginning. We're going to start from a very young age for Dabi, who you all probably know as Toya Todoroki, the oldest Todoroki's son, the oldest son of Endeavor and Rei, and the older brother to Fuyumi, Natsu, and Shoto. So, as we know from a very young age, Toya had a really powerful fire quirk. So powerful, in fact, that he was trained constantly by his father to surpass him and to become the next Endeavor and to beat All Might and all that. But at some point, Endeavor realized that Toya's body was not compatible with his quirk, that his body was more compatible with an ice quirk, like his mother's. As a result, he stopped training Toya. He stopped paying as much attention to him. And Toya had no idea why. From Toya's perspective, his father used to love him and give him all the attention in the world, and then it's just gone. He doesn't know why. He just thinks, oh, I guess I'm not good enough yet. I'm not good enough with my powers. So from that day on, he kept trying to prove himself to his father. He kept trying to show him, hey, Dad, look what I can do. Look, my flames can burn really, really hot. And he ends up hurting himself in the process. He burns himself, he rips his own hair out. He basically gets extremely hurt, just trying to get his father to notice him again, because he's a little kid and he used to be loved by his father and he wants that love and attention back. Some people think of it as him just being a child, but no. If a little kid has suddenly been ignored by their parent, there are two ways to go about this. There are some kids who will just kind of like, cry about it silently. But in most cases, kids tend to really act out if they really want a parent's attention. And that's not them being a brat or being spoiled or them being unreasonable. Children are expressive, and children don't know how to articulate their feelings in the same way adults do. They know how to get attention in different ways. So they try to do things, they try to shout, they try to get their parents' attention. In Toya's case, he even ended up hurting himself to get his father's attention, all to no avail. Endeavor looked the other way, concentrated on his hero work, and later, when Shoto was born, he concentrated on Shoto, which left Toya feeling really hurt and abandoned. To him, his father just left him behind. He didn't know why. He just didn't care anymore. And he felt really abandoned and hurt and desperate and lost and upset. He kept trying, though. He kept trying. He was very, very determined. And he kept trying. And he had this fiery spirit in him, no pun intended. He kept doing whatever he could to try and get Endeavor's attention. And at some point, he said to Endeavor, "I'm going to Sokoto Peak, and I'm going to show you what I can do. Please come." And Endeavor was like, "No, I'm not going there. I'm going to do other things instead." So he let Toya go off on his own, completely unsupervised. And Toya was beginning to show off what he could do. He started using his fire powers. Unfortunately, the fire went out of control, and it was too hot for him to handle. He ended up almost burning to death. And from his perspective, his father still hadn't turned up. His father didn't come to see what he could do or come to see what had become of him or anything. His father just left him there, let him wander off without caring, and then left him there to burn and die. So he was already feeling abandoned and neglected and couldn't get his father's attention. But now his father wouldn't even show up in his hour of most need. So he felt extremely upset, very abandoned, very hurt, and he was scared. And next thing he knew, he lost consciousness and was out for 3 years. After these 3 years, he woke up to find himself under the care of All for One and other children. He was very confused and shocked and immediately wanted to go home. So he did. But when he went home, what he saw broke his heart. Everyone seemed to be living life normally without him. To him, he already felt abandoned by his father, but no, he wasn't gonna quit yet. He was gonna go back. He was gonna. And then there was just everyone living life continuously without him. It was like the fact that he was gone for 3 years didn't even matter. For all of his childhood, he tried so hard to get Endeavor's attention, and Endeavor didn't give him even one glance anymore. And yet, he still didn't give up. But now that he's back, no one seemed to care. Not only Endeavor, everyone else just seemed to move on without him. He already felt like he didn't matter to Endeavor anymore. He was trying so hard to get his attention. He was trying everything. He got hurt. He almost died. And Endeavor didn't seem to care. And now, his whole family didn't seem to care that he was gone. They all just moved on without him. The hurt in his eyes in that scene, that was heartbreaking to watch. And all that hurt and pain and anger, it festered within him. As a child, Toya was extremely expressive, and that didn't change when he first went to the Todoroki household after he woke up. He was still very expressive and emotional and wanted to go home. But when he saw that, he realized he was completely alone. The people he was supposed to be able to trust, they just all left him. There was no one there anymore. So he ended up dealing with all of this pain alone. He couldn't tell anybody. He couldn't trust anybody because the people he was supposed to be able to love and trust are gone. They didn't care about him. For many years later, he kept all these feelings to himself. He couldn't talk to anyone, confide in anyone, express it to anyone, even though he's an expressive person. He learned to keep it to himself, to keep his emotions in check, at least on the surface, even though deep down he was seething with rage and hurt and anger and all these negative emotions that festered inside of him. Endeavor, being the hero that he was, wanting to surpass All Might, wanting that attention, was what caused Toya to not have his father's attention in the first place, to be ignored, to be abandoned from his point of view. And because of that, he began to despise heroes like Endeavor. He began to despise heroes who always concentrated on hero work, but only for fame and attention. And you know who else despised heroes who does that? The hero killer Stain. With this mindset similarity, Dabi became a Stain follower. He began to understand this concept of, despising false heroes. And he wanted to eliminate them, not just his father. Though, of course, his father was still his main focus, because his father was the one who first started ignoring him and abandoning him and hurting him so much by not caring about him. So, Dabi started becoming a Stain follower. At some point, he met Himiko Toga, who he became good friends with, and at some point later, after Stain's defeat, both him and Toga joined the League of Villains, because the League of Villains' cause would help him further his agenda. At this point in time, Dabi was so hurt and broken that he wanted to cause as much pain to Endeavor as possible. Just as much pain as possible, because Endeavor hurt him so much, left him to almost die even. He wanted Endeavor to feel all of that. He wanted to hurt him, but he was careful in planning. He waited. He had already waited almost 10 years after everything, so he could wait a little more. He was just gonna plan meticulously. All these emotions were what drove him. He joined the League of Villains, was loyal to their cause, and supported them, all while having this agenda in mind the whole time. In this time span is when we see Dabi for most of the show. He attacked the students of UA. He took part in the training camp attack. He killed over 30 people, which made the news, and everyone began to know him as a ruthless villain. And I've even seen some people think that he felt nothing during those killings, but remember, Dabi is a very emotional person. He always had been, even as a child. And just because he had no one to talk to and couldn't trust anyone with his personal details, doesn't mean he stopped being emotional. He's just very good at keeping it quiet. He does feel something. There is a clip in early season 5 where he reminisced of an interaction with a hero he killed, Snatch, the sand hero. Snatch asked him in his last moments if he ever felt anything for the families of the people he killed. Now, you might think that these last words impacted Dabi, but the way Dabi responded to that memory makes me think that it was more of an answer to the question rather than something that impacted him only after the question was asked. Because he answered, "I've thought about it so much that it's driven me insane." He never said, "Now that you mention it," or "ever since you said that." He just said he's thought about it, which means he was just answering the question. Have you thought about it? Yes. He's thought about it. How he feels exactly about it, we can never exactly know. He never elaborated, but he's definitely not feeling good if it's driving him insane. He thought about it so much, he had some conflicting emotions about it, and it's driven him insane. It's been swirling around in his brain along with all the pain and anger and hurt and abandonment feelings that he's had with his father and his family. It's just mixing around in there. But of course, that pain and anger and abandonment is much stronger, so he just carries on being a villain despite feeling all that anyway. But he does feel that. Later in Season 5, we see one of the first direct attacks against Endeavor and his family when he got a villain to attack Natsu at the Todoroki household. There are people who think that this was personally against Natsu, but I don't think that is the case. He and Natsu were probably the closest of the two Todoroki siblings. I don't think he would have wanted to attack Natsu directly just because he wanted to attack Natsu. No. Don't forget that the villain that was sent was someone who had a thing with Endeavor, like some kind of history. So the whole deal was that Dabi wanted to hurt Endeavor by getting rid of one of the children he thinks Endeavor favors more. Don't forget that from his perspective, Endeavor and the rest of his family moved on without him. So it must seem like, oh, so they matter and I don't, I guess. So he's like, yeah, well, gonna hurt Endeavor, gonna get rid of one of his kids. So that's why he did that. He wanted to cause as much pain to Endeavor as possible. In season 6, he revealed his true identity to the world. He also told Hawks that he was still doing the stain ideology thing, even though he was with the League of Villains. So there's that. Good to know he didn't forget that. But yes, he revealed his identity to the rest of the world, told everyone about Endeavor, what he did to his kids and family, and to him, and how he took a DNA test and that he was Endeavor's son. The world was understandably shocked, and this was the most free Dabi ever looked. I mean, he was literally dancing. He finally, after all this time, managed to get all of these feelings out, express them out into the world. You know how stoic and quiet he seemed for most of that? Yeah, that was just him keeping his feelings to himself. He was planning this moment. He couldn't trust any one person or any group of loved ones with his information, but he did want to take revenge on his father, and, it was freeing to finally talk about it, so it was killing two birds with one stone. He was like, yeah, frick you, Dad. Also, I can talk about it at last. Everyone, look how much my dad did to me. So, everyone was shocked, and he was finally able to get that out. From that point on, the plot focused on Dabi's wanting to get revenge on Endeavor. It should be noted that in this moment, Dabi saw Endeavor and Shoto fighting together on the battlefield. Now remember, when Shoto was born, Endeavor focused his attention on Shoto because from Endeavor's perspective, Shoto was the hybrid he always wanted. He didn't know that Dabi had future secret ice quirks that he could unlock. So Dabi was all like, oh my gosh, Shoto is like Endeavor's perfect son. From his perspective, Shoto is like everything he never was. Shoto got all of his father's attention, totally. And Shoto is the hero that he was supposed to be, but he never was because Endeavor just decided to leave him in dust. So he had this resentment towards Shoto, not directly, but there was definitely some saltiness there, like, wow, that was what I was supposed to do. You must be so happy to be in this spot that I could never be in because Endeavor abandoned me and it hurt my feelings. So he wanted to fight Shoto because of that, but also because Shoto was Endeavor's supposed favorite. I mean, okay, let's face it, Shoto is Endeavor's favorite. Have you seen how many times Endeavor yelled Shoto during the show? Like, I'm pretty sure Shoto is his favorite child. But with all the number of times that happened, yeah, we're pretty sure Endeavor favors Shoto. And Dabi does think so too. Dabi's like, yeah, Shoto is Endeavor's favorite. So I'm salty towards Shoto, but I'm also really, really, really salty towards my dad. So I'm gonna destroy Shoto to bring Dad a present. So to hurt him as much as possible. Hence that little fight that took place between them in season 7. It was a really good episode, and Shoto was able to defeat Dabi at least temporarily. And it was really a great moment for Shoto, honestly. Maybe I should talk about it at some point. Let me know if you want me to do a character analysis on Shoto. He's an interesting one. Alright, so we have Dabi, not permanently. Wow, I wish I don't want him to be permanently defeated. Please, I love him too much. But we have Dabi temporarily defeated, and then he managed to break free of Shoto's ice because he was able to copy the cold fire thing that Shoto did. He was able to use his ice quirks that he never was able to use until now, if I'm not mistaken. If he used it before now, let me know. I might have missed something, but I'm pretty sure this was the first time I saw that. So he realized that if he continued fighting Shoto in the state he's in, he's not gonna make it. His body won't last. So, since his ultimate goal was still Endeavor, like, no matter how salty he felt about anything else, he still mostly wanted to defeat Endeavor and cause him pain. So he was all like, I'm just gonna, go straight to him. Also, notice that at this point in the battle, he was also causing destruction everywhere. Like, he was literally about to explode and destroy everything within a 5-kilometer radius. That's because the world that Endeavor was, trying to fight for, because he's a hero and all that, Dabi was like, yeah, that's important to Endeavor, so I'm going to destroy that. That'll hurt him, destroying the world, because Endeavor's trying to protect the world. So that logic was there as well. So he was all like, okay, I'm going to go to Endeavor, I'm going to fight him. Honestly, the destroying the world to hurt Endeavor thing was his whole thing, for most of the series. That's why he was doing all the murder 30 people and all that, Right, so he went to Endeavor, they had this fight, and this is where we really learned something interesting about Dabi that we haven't yet touched on. Actually, we have sort of touched on it, but we have deviated so much. We have talked about how his psyche and hurt and pain led him to become a villain, that we've deviated from the whole point he even tried anything in the first place, to get his father's attention. As a child, he was always doing things to try and get his father's attention, showing him what he could do, and then burned himself and pulled out his own hair. He's just trying to get his dad's attention, trying to get his dad to love him again. And it just didn't work. And as much hurt and pain and abandonment he feels, as much as he wants to get revenge on Endeavor for abandoning him, that part of him that still wants acknowledgement, that wants to be seen by his father at last again, never left. It never left. And as he continued fighting, as he faced Endeavor, and the rest of his family came and watched him and wouldn't let him die alone, he wasn't even coherent anymore. But we could look into his thoughts, and he said, "They're all watching? This is what it took? If only I'd known sooner." He didn't have the courage to face them earlier. He didn't know how to. And now he was about to explode. He was about to die. And he couldn't control his fire anymore. It was going too much. And at that very moment, he was seen. His family saw him. The whole Todoroki family was around him. Even Shoto joined them later. He realized that this was all he really wanted. At the end of the day, all that revenge, all that anger, all that hurt, that all stemmed from a desire to be seen, to be acknowledged, to be loved. And he fought for that so hard, didn't get that. And because he didn't get that, he got angry, became a villain, wanted to destroy everything to get revenge because he thought that would make him feel better. But all this time, he still wanted to be seen, to be noticed, to be loved. And at that very last moment before he exploded, he got that. And he regretted it a lot. If only he had been able to face them sooner, he said. There's still things he wants to say to them. It's heartbreaking. A villain who wanted revenge, but who also just wanted love. It's definitely a tragic villain backstory. He managed to stop himself from dying by freezing his core internally. That way, he wouldn't, die. But he still was in really bad shape after the explosion. His family surrounded him, and he was so broken. He was so done. He just wanted everything to be over already. He said, "Just die already. Everyone just die." He was so done. So done with all this pain, with all this destruction, with fighting so hard. He just wanted everything to just die, to disappear. Dabi is an extremely broken person. He's been through a lot. Neglect from childhood. Trying so hard to get the attention of someone and not getting it. Being hurt both physically and mentally, trying to get said attention and love. trying to get acknowledged, trying to get seen. He tried so hard to get noticed, to get loved again, to get acknowledged, and it didn't pay off. He ended up almost dying. He ended up letting that anger fester in him because he had no one to confide in or trust. He became a villain who empathized with Stain's ideology because heroes like Endeavor himself in particular, was the reason he was hurt in the first place, reason he felt abandoned. And he wanted revenge. But at the end of the day, what he really, really wanted, deep down in his core, past the burning fire, was just a broken child wanting to be loved, wanting to be seen, wanting to be held. And it's heartbreaking. Dabi's story is definitely a tragic one. Also a cautionary tale on treating people, a certain way. Give your loved ones the attention that you can give them. Because hurt and pain can do unspeakable things to a person. Most people won't end up like Dabi, but the pain Dabi feels is real. There are lots of real people out there who have been abused, abandoned, hurt by the ones they care about, and feel like they can't trust anybody. There are lots of real people out there who feel what Dabi felt. And I think we should all extend a hand to those we can without compromising our own mental healths. Because there are lots of people out there who just need that one person to talk to, just need that one person to love them, to see them at last. I think Dabi could have been prevented from becoming Dabi if he had a good support system. Because if he just had someone to confide in during those silent years between him discovering his family quote-unquote abandoned him to him joining the Stain ideology. Granted, we don't know exactly when he joined that. But if he had some support between that, if he had someone he could just trust and know won't abandon him, maybe all of this could have been prevented. Thank you so much for watching. Dabi's story really tugs at my heartstrings, and I've met a lot of people who feel the same way. Does he tug at your heartstrings too? Who's your favorite MHA villain? I'm Melody Snowflake. Thank you so much for coming to my character analysis, and I'll see you in my next video. Goodbye.